This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this date, March 28th, in the year 1992, one of the greatest college basketball games of all time happened. It's Duke, it's Kentucky, it's the East Regional Final. The winner goes to the Final Four in Minneapolis at the Metrodome. We're at the Philadelphia Spectrum. Yes, it was around at the time. For Duke and Kentucky facing each other off. So anyway, this is a very tight matchup. The great Vern Lundquist with Len Elmore were calling the game for CBS. It was a battle royal that had to go through overtime, and it was just a huge matchup. Kentucky looked good. The '92 squad. The Wildcats were coming off a 2-year postseason ban because of major recruiting violations. The good news is that Coach Eddie Sutton was not involved in the things, although he had to resign from Kentucky, and it was Rick Pitino becoming the coach of Kentucky. There were some problems on all that. Kentucky had 4 key seniors who were actually loyal to the program throughout its probation and stayed there. Richie Farmer, a shooting guard, who actually was the Kentucky governor of agriculture for 8 years, but then would have to go to jail for 2 years after pleading guilty to corruption charges during his tenure as commissioner. Darren Feldhaus, close to Cincy, he was a 6'7" forward. John Pelfrey, a 6'8" forward, actually used to coach Arkansas. And Sean Woods, who used to be coach of Morehead State. Well, now, but Sean Woods was a good senior. So they had 4 decent seniors. But the biggest star was Jamal Mashburn, who would, in '93, become an All-American and would go into the NBA draft. And I believe Dallas drafted him. Anyway, it's amazing. The legacy of the unforgettables, Feldhaus, Pelfrey, Woods, and Farmer, were such that Kentucky decided to retire their jerseys, but their numbers will stayed intact. They didn't retire the numbers, they just retired the jerseys. Anyway, Duke were the defending national champs. They won in '91. They were the team that shocked UNLV in the semifinals, but they wanted to go back-to-back, trying to get the first back-to-back champs in almost 2 decades. They had a good core. They only lost Greg Kuback to graduation and Billy McCaffrey to transfer, while retaining their core players, including Christian Leitner, Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill, Cherokee Parks, and Eric Meek added in the lineup. The Blue Devils were strong. They were 17-0 at one point, but they lost to North Carolina. Duke would actually lose to Wake Forest and ended up winning the ACC title game, crushing North Carolina by a fine powder. So anyway, Duke looked pretty intense. In the East Regional, the 1-seed Duke Blue Devils took care of the 16-seed Campbell Camels by a wide margin, took down Iowa by 13, and took down Seton Hall by 12. While Kentucky took care of Old Dominion, Iowa State, and UMass. So it was very close and all that. Duke ended up having a 5-point lead. And it looked good for Duke to move on past Kentucky and get to the Final Four. But then, somehow, later in the second half, after being accidentally stepped on the chest of Emilio Timberlake. No, not related to Justin Timberlake. Anyway, he was given a technical foul. Fortunately, though, he did not get booted. Kentucky would tie the game with 33 seconds left on a Devin Feldhaus 2-pointer. Hurley had a chance to win the game? No. Bad luck, Hurley. And then it was overtime. Kentucky was up 98-96. Leitner scored 6 points to make it 102-101. Kentucky with 7.8 seconds left. Wow. Sean Woods hit a running one-hander. Kentucky was up 103-102 with 2 seconds left. So Duke had to call timeout and drew up the final play. Grant Hill would throw a long pass to Leitner. And Leitner would score. And all that. However, Hill was not guarded on the inbounds pass, which was unusual because normally you have someone trying to block a pass or something. They only had 2 seconds left. Leitner's 79-foot pass got to Leitner. Leitner dribbled to his right and shot a turnaround jumper over Feldhaus to win the game in Duke, 104-103 in overtime. Usually don't see those scores in the NBA, but that was an overtime thriller in the NCAA tournament. Duke won the game. So anyway, here's Fern Lundquist's call. Well, Fern Lundquist on CBS said, there's a pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Ooh, yes. So anyway. So Duke ended up winning 104-103. What a game. It ended up being 93-93 after the second quarter. Well, after the second half. Can you imagine 93 points by a team in NCAA basketball? And these guys were tied. So, anyway. It worked out well. Coach K actually did the right thing by consoling one of the Kentucky players, Farmer, and actually visited the Kentucky radio booth and congratulated the Wildcats for what they did. So Duke ended up winning 104-103. Leitner led the team with 31 points and 7 rebounds. Bobby Hurley with 10 assists. Kentucky's leaders, Jamal Mashburn put up 29 for Kentucky, 29 points, 10 rebounds. So he led Kentucky. Sean Woods had 7 assists. It was just unbelievable what could happen and all that. And it was weird. Christian Leitner was 10 for 10 from the field and 10 for 10 from the free throw line. So he didn't miss a shot, either a field goal attempt or a free throw. And it could have been all for naught if he was ejected for that stomp on the chest of Timberlake. So what a shot it was. One of the greatest games of all time. And Duke used the momentum to beat both Indiana and Michigan at the Final Four in Big Ten territory to win their second straight title and becoming the last back-to-back champions until Florida did it in 2006-2007. And Florida still is the last team to repeat as champions, as the defending champions. Kansas for 2023 lost to Arkansas. Sorry, I just had to get in there. But anyway, yeah. Great shot. 104-103. It was a classic game, even though that the players for Kentucky were not really well known, unless you're a big college basketball file. But I'm not. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond at Duke.